protect equipment on many cities' budget. Right. Oh, good. No problem. Let's go ahead and.
That doesn't answer the financial side of it, though, sorry. Unless Joe's donating a lot of money to us.
This is twice as many police officers we used to have.
Okay, I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order, and first of all, let's have a flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, before we get started, Eli's going to just give you a quick explanation of what's going on tonight with our video system.
Yeah, we have Access Humboldt is running the video system, and a group, the NAACP, had requested to have it, so they're taking care of the cost, and it's just a trial to see how it works this way. So that's it.
All right. We had a closed session tonight. There's a court where we have a dispute in court over the land between the Yurok tribe and the Rancheria, where right now there's things in court. They're going to have a negotiation. It'll be a mediation, so that's taking place now. And that's our report from closed session. First of all, we have to get to the approval of the agenda. Is there anyone with any issues with the agenda? So somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the agenda.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. We, if you've all checked last month's minutes, we have to approve the minutes. Are there any changes or anything to the minutes? If not,
I'll move that we accept the minutes as is.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have council reports to come through, so I'm going to start with Tom, if you'd like to. You have any council report?
I don't have anything to report other than the Trails Committee meeting will be taking place earlier than scheduled. It'll be March 24th. The Trails Committee meeting will be taking place March 24th rather than April. We moved it up because we were hoping to get the trails policy submitted to the Planning Commission.
And before we go on, I do want everyone to realize that we really have to speak into the microphones tonight because they're going to be filming. They need to pick up the sound. So for anybody that comes up to this mic for us, make sure the sound is good and we have a clear sound. Thank you. David, you got a report?
No, I have no report this month.
Okay. Dwight.
There was probably a record short RCEA meeting this month in which they discussed finances are reasonable for the year. We're on track. There's some unknowns having to do with PG&E's rate differentials that they charge. But for the most part, your electric provider is working smoothly and getting good service. There were a couple of minor other issues that basically involved trying to procure electricity contracts, long-term electricity contracts that are required by state law. And the RCA was planning on getting that from the wind project, the onshore wind project, but so they're looking for options, and most likely they're going to have a solar project from the Fresno area that will be furnishing that particular green energy. So that was the most part of the meeting.
Okay. I've got a couple of things to report. We had a meeting with the Land Trust, and Ryan Desmit and I were there for the city, and the main thing that came out of this is kind of figuring out where the city's responsibility is to the library and museum, 3.5 acres. So we're going to be working out what the city has to do, what the library and museum are responsible for, and so trying to organize how to keep this place looking nice and getting the plants planted and working together to try to make our area a little nicer. The other thing that came out of that is the library, turns out our library is very popular, it's doing very well. They've done a lot of activities that are really, and I guess the whole library system is very impressed with what they've done up here. One of the things that they did say is they were looking for puzzles and board games, so if you would like to donate anything, anything to the library, they're interested in trying to use that for people to come in and be able to use those games. I guess that's very popular. So the other meeting I went to was HCOG, and of course what comes up every time is the 101 corridor and the last chance grade. The last chance grade is still working through. They said over the last 5 years it's cost $85 million, so it's running at a pretty good cost. They are now going to put in boreholes. They're going to do 15 to 17 boreholes, and they have to go 200 feet deep. And because they're so remote, they're going to be doing them by helicopter, which is incredibly expensive. And they've got geophones attached to the seismographs. I mean, there's 24 of them, and they're using shock waves to see how deep it is. But anyway, all this is costing a fortune and taking time. So we've got their next meeting that they'll be holding where we can get a lot of information will be in June. And they're going to try to announce what steps are going next, but it is slowly working its way into finding out at least where the highway was going to go. The 101 corridor, a lot of things have been awarded to Caltrans. They've got a lot of the jobs, including putting in the signals, so it's working along slowly. It looks like they need 5 to 6 seasons in order just to get the off and on ramp settled, and so they think it's going to go slow. They're trying to find a way to speed up the process, but it looks like they said it could be done in it could be 3 to 4 years, even a little sooner if they can find ways to get around some of these extra processes, but it's going to be a while. I guess the mitigation cost to put in this overpass and the trail is about $16 million, so they're working along and spending lots of money to do it, but they're getting there. They are working very hard. This is something that's a big deal to them. And that's the end of my report. So, Eli, you're on for your
So the first thing I did want to mention is that the council is planning on having another meeting this month on the 24th, which would be at 6 p.m. And then as far as the cell tower on Trinidad Head, we've been working with both Verizon and AT&T, trying to get monthly updates from them to see how they're progressing in finishing their new locations. Verizon says that they're finalizing their lease. The next step is doing the soils report and environmental review. Foundation and construction drawings will be developed in 4 to 8 weeks, and building permit will then be submitted. Usually takes 8 to 10 weeks, and they may pay extra to expedite the process, and they're hoping to have the building permit issued and begin the construction, which will take 2 months after that. So they said they should have the site ready this summer, and we're trying to move them along. And so that's going to be one of the sites that AT&T will be sharing with Verizon. Otherwise, AT&T is developing a second site on their quarry site, which will be near where the current Verizon tower is. Said that they've going through the plan check and doing a soils report, and geotech requires the vendor to auger into the ground for a soil sample, and so the soils report is scheduled, and they'll give an update and address the plan check comments for the building permit. And they have all of this like in their own version where they have BP for building permit. And so I'm trying to translate what they have written. But anyway, they're moving along on both of those sites. So hopefully, we'll have closure to the Trinidad head site soon this year. And then in addition to that, we had applied for a loan with the Energy Commission for almost $50,000 to get solar panels on top of the town hall. And they had a deadline that they were working with, and then they're redoing our request. So it'll be a 1% loan, and they're hopefully going to be approving that at either their April or their May meeting. So I'll keep you posted on that. So that's all I have.
Could I pose a quick question? Sure.
Yeah.
That's for RCEA is going to be approving it?
Yeah, our CEA.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing is that the Redwood Empire Division is having their meeting on March 20th. I know a couple of the council members won't be able to attend, but I'm hoping some of the others will, and I'll plan on attending. It'll be in Rio Del and in Benbow.
I have some questions.
Go ahead, yes.
So I'm looking at the staff or the city manager's report. I'm wondering, were there any notes taken or what was discussed as part of the Van Wyck Trail and Connectivity Project that would be available?
Oh, yeah, I can make that available for you. Yeah, Becky took the notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I don't see it reported here, so I ask every month, was there a government-to-government meeting
No,
with the Rancheria this last month?
no. I'm sorry. When we say the stormwater project, that's what happened. We talked about stormwater projects.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I kind of thought from
Exactly.
that, but if there was nothing else.
No, and it wasn't a formal government-to-government meeting. It was actually on a technical
Representatives.
basis, the engineers, right.
Okay. And I had one more question that's not on here. So where do we stand with short-term rental renewals? They were due on February 1st, is my understanding.
Yeah.
They have all the information in to the city, every business.
Yeah, all of them have been submitted, and I've been going through them, and the last one that I had, I gave it over to Angela today. So she's there's a follow-up that's needed, like on about 6 of them, basically like the dimensions or whatever, you know. So I just want it to be clarified and
Okay.
you know, and cleaned up, and but yeah, it's moving along.
Okay, so I guess my question is if February 1st is not a hard deadline, is that what's happening? Or
No, see, they
I read
turn
the
in the
app-
application, then I have to sign off on it, but in the process of reviewing it, when I look at it, I just, you know, felt like there was, like, for instance, the drawing has the drawing of what the unit looks like, but didn't have the dimensions for each of the bedrooms.
Mhm.
So I wanted the dimensions clearly depicted on there.
Okay, I just am curious as to when
Yeah.
applications are turned in, if they're not complete, why they're still being considered if
Yeah.
it's...
They were complete because they did have the site plan and they had the floor plan. So that was complete in that respect. It's just that I thought it would be better for us to actually have room dimensions too. So
Okay.
it's just an additional request.
All right, thank you.
David, do you have anything? I'm going to ask just quickly about the local road safety plan. That was something I read about. Or is that something that we should know more about, or is that just it sounds like it's something we're doing with the county and the...
Right, oh, yeah. So it's to coordinate any improvements that are planned for roads that we share with the county, meaning like Stagecoach, Patrick's Point, and Scenic. So anytime that they're doing improvements and we need to do improvements, we'll do those improvements together rather than, you know, stopping the, you know,
I get it.
and doing one entity and then stopping it and doing the other entity. So we're going to coordinate those improvements.
And we have the money. That money comes from HCOG. That's
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, if you're all done, let's hear the law enforcement report. So, Kevin, you're on. Officer Miller, thank you.
Good evening, Kevin Miller, Sheriff's Lieutenant for North Patrol Operations, and Deputy Joe Yeager, who I'm assuming most of you have met, but he's your new deputy here in Trinidad. So this is his first council meeting also, so I want to introduce him and make sure everyone's familiar with his face, and come say hi to him when you see him out and about. So, looking through our statistics for last month, the good news is there's nothing too remarkable or urgent here within the city limits itself. Most of the activity has been in the outlying areas in the county, the unincorporated areas. We're starting to see, it's that time of the year again, so we're starting to see some car break-ins along Scenic Drive, Patrick's Point Drive. That's a trend that we see this time of the year when the weather starts to get nicer and it's lighter out later. And also, it's not really unique to this area. It's all up and down the coast. So the Samoa beaches get the same thing, and it goes all the way down into Crab Park and the Lolita Bottoms area and things like that. So we did put out a public safety announcement to the public, as we often do this time of the year, kind of just warning folks, hey, listen, we see trends about this time of the year, so don't leave valuables in your car. Put those things in the trunk, or better yet, let's just leave them home and go get them afterwards. So other than that, we in the greater Trinidad area, which encompasses West Haven also, we took a total of 9 reports. We made 4 arrests, conducted 5 felony investigations and 7 misdemeanor investigations. Most of those numbers are up from January, where in January we took a total of 14 reports, made 2 arrests, and conducted 2 felony investigations and 5 misdemeanor investigations. And again, those statistics are for going back and researching those calls. They're not here within the city itself. It's just outside the city limits. So, moving on, I had a conversation with Sheriff Hansel this morning and he wanted me to express to the city council, city manager, that the Measure Z committee's in receipt of your request for funding. Great. He's in support of that idea. It will be his recommendation that it be funded, with the caveat that, of course, ultimate decision is up to the Board of Supervisors. With that said, normally this application is shared with the city of Blue Lake, and they didn't submit theirs this year. So if you are granted this funding, there is a possibility that the first 6 months of the service would result in you getting a full-time deputy.
Wow.
With that said, though, our staffing levels are still fluctuating. I think that we've made some great strides. As I sat up here a few months ago, before the holidays even, telling you that we were down 26 deputies, we've been able to whittle that number down to, we've got 10 in the police academy right now. Nice. And then we have 10 unfilled positions. So it's moving along slowly. The people that are in the police academy now have to successfully finish the police academy and then pass another 6 months training program with our field training officers before they'll be out on the street and solo, which is where you'll see the greatest impact. Because we'll be able to put more cars out there, and we'll also be able to backfill a lot of these specialty positions, such as the Measure Z funding deputy. In the interest of transparency, the sheriff said that he's optimistic and hopeful that it would be January before we'd be able to fund that, or actually have a deputy in that position. I wish I could sit up here and tell you that it was going to be sooner than that, but we're working on it. There is always a possibility that it could be sooner, but we're looking at January right now. Any questions?
I do want to thank you very much it sounds like you're really supporting us, and that's great. Thanks for coming up here, and thank Hansel for trying to make that work for us. It's very nice.
I'll pass it along. Thank you.
And Officer Yeager, welcome. Hopefully you'll have a nice time here.
Thank you. I've had a great time the last couple of months.
All right.
It's a nice community.
Yeah,
I've had a great time. It's a nice community. I've met lots of business owners. I've actually met all of them. Talked to several community members. And I'm looking forward to the next 4 or 5 months up here.
All right. Well, thank you. Anybody have any comments or questions?
I blinked somewhere in the discussion. Why is it just 4 or 5 months?
Oh, well, we switch rotations every 6 months.
Okay,
So there's a possibility I'll be up here for an additional 6 months after that, though. So,
you could throw your hat back in the ring if
Sure,
you want.
right.
Thanks. Okay.
Great.
Yeah, we switched over. It was a position where it was a 3-year minimum, or at the will of the sheriff, based on good performance and things like that. To it's a picked position by seniority now. So every 6 months, deputies get an opportunity by seniority to pick for this position. And the idea behind that is we tend to get more senior deputies, such as Joe here. You guys are very fortunate to have him. He has experience out in Blue Lake before coming here, and he's just been a deputy for a long time. So, but it also allows for all the deputies to have an opportunity for it. Maybe because of other ambitions within the agency, or maybe because of just things going on in their personal lives. This first 6 months isn't right for them. But maybe 6 months down the road it is, and this gives them an opportunity to pick that and give some exposure and experience working, in a contract city, in a small city atmosphere, which is a lot different than working in, a bigger city, certainly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're ready for items from the floor. So at this time, members of the public may comment on items not appearing on the agenda. They'll be limited to 3 minutes or less. They should be directed to the council as a whole and not to individual council members or staff. And council and staff responses will be minimal for non-agenda items. So we have a number of people. Elaine, is it Weinreb? Okay, Elaine, you're on.
Hi, it's beautiful weather we've been having, isn't it? It's a little bit too beautiful. According to the Weather Bureau, we've only gotten 2/3 of the amount of rain that we're supposed to have for the entire rainy season. And that season's almost over. And here it is March, and I noticed today when I was driving around that the grass on the hillsides is already beginning to turn brown. That's not good. We are in a drought. And if we're in a drought, we can expect to have fires, maybe a lot of fires. And what is that going to do to the city's water supply? The council needs to take this very seriously, and I would urge the council to put a moratorium on any new hookups on the city's water supply immediately.
Thank you. Richard Johnson, please.
Good evening. My name is Richard Johnson. Just wanted to share some thoughts with you, and if nothing else, for the benefit of those who don't know some of the things that are going on. As you probably know by now, the Bureau of Indian Affairs issued a FONSI, which is a finding of non-significant impact, and an updated environmental assessment for the Trinidad Rancheria project. That was issued last Friday, the 6th of March, and there is a brief period for comments. Comments need to be completed and submitted by March 20th, which is a very big challenge considering the fact that this is an almost 900-page document. I'd also just like to remind you that back in October of 2018, when we and the city reviewed the draft environmental assessment, the city submitted a fairly substantial list of issues and questions for the BIA. In the FONSI is a section which describes or has the letter from the city at that time, and then also tries to describe whether or not the comment was incorporated into the new EA or not. But the significance of all of this is that with respect to the city at this point, while there still may be many issues that the city would like to address, the main one, I believe, is probably the water. And as you know, the Coastal Commission approved the Bureau of Indian Affairs consistency determination subject to the Rancheria identifying a water source for the hotel that did not impact coastal resources. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side you might be on, I suppose, the Coastal Commission has not yet officially seen this information from the Rancheria. However, the FONSI intends to be the document that the BIA believes satisfies that requirement. Let me just quickly jump to my request and my concern. I feel that this water issue is very, very important to the city of Trinidad. We, meaning the Planning Commission, have provided a draft water policy to you and to the City Council, which I hope that you will see very soon. And I really urge that the city review at least the specific parts of the FONSI, which is Appendix H. And I would sincerely request that you authorize the city manager, or if time would permit, to have a public meeting to review comments from the public so that we could provide them by March 20th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we respond to that
Yeah.
real quickly? We've got a meeting March 24th.
Right.
Comments are due 20th.
I just wondered if we wanted to make any comments on that, or okay?
No, as for that, I know that we're kind of doing our water right now as the liaison
we got
for that. That's why, it's, I don't know how we kind of slow this down to finish
is
our
not
water
agendized
assessment.
tonight.
Yeah, I know. I just wondered if we, one of the things I wanted to get to the FONSI, where is that? How do we get that? Is that,
That's in.
I'm sorry,
Federal.
Well, it's located in the public library.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You can go to the Trinidad Rancheria's website,
thank you.
and I think that's Trinidad-rancheria.org is the website, and on the front page you'll see a link to the entire document, and there you have the information.
Okay, thank you. And Ted, don't sit down. You're up right now. Yes, Ted Pease.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry you haven't seen it yet. The FONSI is out. It says that is a finding of no significant impact. And, for anybody who lives here, there's a significant impact regardless of what the BIA says. So, a couple of things. I would like to reiterate the comment about drought. At my rain gauge, half a mile from here, up the hill, in February, 1.25 inches compared to nearly 30 last year in February. Okay. Wow. In view of the drought, and in view of Jackie Hostler's comment in the new North Coast Journal article, which is posted now, that says that they will have occupancy in 2021 in their new hotel, and they will start construction within the next few weeks. I would like also to urge that the city consider a complete moratorium on any new hookups while we figure out what the water policy is and what the rest of the landscape looks like. I mean, I realize that the Rancheria thinks that they've been more than forthcoming, but none of the questions, to my mind, that have been raised on this issue have yet been answered. Two, I'd like to urge the City Council to call a public meeting, as Richard says, to discuss his water policies and future development at the soonest possible opportunity. Many people around town have no idea what's going on with this. That's probably their fault for not. But I would urge a public hearing, a public meeting, just to discuss those water issues. Third, personally, I would like to hear the City Council members' perspectives on the hotel project. The creation of a 100-room hotel here on the Trinidad coast is going to completely change this community. And I don't think we've had enough of a conversation about what that's going to mean around here. So I would urge the City Council to call and host a public meeting to discuss those impacts, to let the Trinidad community, the larger community, participate in those conversations, and not only about the hotel, but the impact of the planned interchange that will service the hotel exclusively. And it's going to disrupt a lot of community around here from West Haven to Trinidad. That's it. So I've actually given you a bunch of homework assignments. That's what I'd like you guys to do.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask Ted for clarification?
Please.
So you're asking that the Trinidad Council request 2 public meetings, one to discuss water issues in and around Trinidad, and one to discuss development impacts.
I think these are 2 separate issues. I think the water issue is one that anybody who's a water customer, and I am one, has a concern about. And obviously, we've been having this conversation about areas A and B and C and da-da-da-da-da. Most people don't understand what that's going to mean for their own water bills, water availability. But I think the larger issue of what happens when this hotel, once construction starts within the next month or so, or 2, whatever they think they're going to do, right, starting at that intersection, and through the next year or 15 months that it will take for them to put up that hotel. And then when it gets up to speed, we really haven't seen what that means. And I guess I'd just go back to one other thing that's in the North Coast Journal article, that Jackie says that she is going to, that they'll have plenty of water from their wells. We don't know. But they will ask the city to make up the difference if they have to. So again, I'd say a moratorium on that decision for the city. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, Dave Hankin from West Haven, and I'll be very brief. I, number one, wanted to reiterate the request that either the council or the city manager on behalf of the council provide the BIA with a comment that at least updates them on what the water status is with request to a hypothetical request from the Trinidad Rancheria. My reading of the FONSI, again, suggests that BIA trivializes the amount of water that Trinidad would need to, give to the Rancheria to satisfy their needs if in fact the city supplied the entire amount. All right, and so that's important. Like if you have a chance to read through at least the part that pertains to that, that would be really smart. But so if it's something on behalf of the entire council, then you'd probably have to have a special meeting like ASAP. That's how we would have to do it in West Haven. And then the other thing I wanted to do was just give you some perspective on what it might mean if the entire needs were supplied by the city, because the final EA actually has what I think we can regard now as some final figures on what the water demand would be for the hotel. 9,800 gallons per day at 70% occupancy. That's like the average figure, and then I calculated then that would be about 14,000 gallons per day at 100% occupancy. I then compared that with the GHG calculation of the gallons per day, around 48,000 gallons per day of available water in a non-severe drought year, right? That's limited by pumping rate, et cetera. And if you take a 15% water loss on top of that, I've talked about that issue before, it ends up with the average amounts to 24% of the available water of the city of Trinidad. And at maximum use of the hotel, it's 34%. And I think those kind of put the request in the context of your larger policy decisions in a really meaningful way. It certainly would be meaningful to me. I mean, that's like a huge one single customer that would be taking a large fraction of the water. So that was all I had to say.
Okay, thank you. Is it Carpani? I'm sorry, I couldn't read this very well.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Carpani Burns. And first I would like to acknowledge that we are on stolen Wiyot land. I was not able to come to the last meeting, the February 11th meeting, I guess. So I went online to look at first I was looking for the agenda for this meeting, and then I wanted to see the minutes, and I found it really cumbersome to get through the 53 pages of documents that were. It was very confusing too whether pages I was reading was responding to was part of the minutes, or if it was part of conversations of certain consent items, which actually notated it was going to be 6 pages or 5 pages of that. but the minutes themselves was, first of all, the pages were not numbered, so that if I were to print something out, I had to go to the PDF to find out what page number that actually was. If I was putting those pages together to like maybe come here and speak about certain pages, and I had them separated from the total 53 pages, I couldn't refer anybody to, I could refer to the subject, but I couldn't refer like to a page number that we could all talk about at the same time. So that felt like a really important thing to me. The next thing that was difficult is I had a hard time reading it because, and I have a really good printer. This is what my printer printed out, and it's how it looked on my screen as well. It's very gray. This is what I picked up here. So I don't know how you got it that way, but if you can see the difference. So I don't know if in your program, the text is like selected for a gray instead of black. But I would appreciate if you would look at that, if somebody, whoever manages that, would look at it to see how that looks. And this may be outside of, this might be minutes. I don't know, how do you respond to minutes when you're approving at the next meeting? But in the city manager's report on the Van Wyck Trail, they talked about a meeting was held and another is scheduled for the week, for the end of the week. A person like me reading that is like, when and what week? So I would like a little bit more attention to detail, because if somebody's looking back, referencing or researching or something, those are really gray areas. So that's,
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Gabe, you've got all that, right? All right, Gabe, we'll look at it. Thank you. All right, is anyone else, looks like everybody got up. Anyone else need to, or wish to speak? All right, then we will move on to the consent agenda. And on all the matters on the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. So we're not, without any other discussion, we're going to first go to the council. Does anyone wish to pull anything from the consent agenda?
I don't wish to pull anything, but I just have a question or a clarification.
Sure.
On the water fund, page 25 of 53, I was just curious on line 79-130, what's water line hookups, and it says that it was a $6,500 expense for the current year, and I'm curious what water line hookups mean.
Just on Berry Road, there's a house that went through planning. It was a second accessory dwelling unit. Folks had a large enough lot, went through the planning process, so it's in city limits.
Okay, and is that, it says it's an expense, so is that the city picks up their hookup?
The city had its own, had to hire a contractor to do the work, but the applicant paid those fees and then a hookup fee.
Okay, so that gets reimbursed.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, is there anyone who would like to speak on the consent agenda? Anyone in the public? All right, we can make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes. All right, we're on to discussion items, and we're going to start with a discussion decision regarding Resolution 2020-02, authorizing the adoption of the Humboldt Operational Area Hazard Mitigation Plan 2020 update. So Eli, you're on.
Okay. So this item is regarding the Humboldt County has their hazard mitigation plan, and we are part of that. We've been participating, attending meetings, and we have a resolution that will be addressed tonight too. So basically, we need adoption of the plan which is the resolution authorizing the adoption of the Humboldt Operational Area Hazard Mitigation Plan. It's the 2020 update. The prior one was done in 2014. And once that's approved, then so the resolution's on page 34, and then on pages 35, 36, and 37 is a grant that we can apply for the hazard mitigation. And this, of course, will address various hazards faced by our overall community, which would include drought, earthquake, flood, landslide, severe weather, tsunamis, wildfires, and climate change, and sea level rise. So all of those could be addressed. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, has been helping not only our community, but the overall Humboldt County become certified as tsunami ready. And also Cal OES and FEMA have either reviewed or are in the process of reviewing all of this. And then once we get this resolution passed, 2020-02, then we will pass it on to the county. And so that's basically it. I'll entertain any questions you might have. Go ahead.
I have a question. So is the grant, so the grant is part of this resolution?
Yeah, the resolution's actually to approve the pages of, and then we would apply for the grant. So once we have this resolution in place, then we can apply for the grant.
So would that be the city of Trinidad, or is that the mitigation group as a whole?
Yeah, we're gonna be applying, and that each entity would be applying.
On their own?
On their own. That's from my understanding.
Okay.
Now, Becky is in charge of that part of it, but from my understanding, it would be individually.
All
but
right.
it's possible that it is collectively. I can find out for sure for you.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. And then
Okay.
do we have projects in mind for this grant, and what is our matches and
Yeah.
things like that?
Well, the types of projects are listed on page 35 in general that we could be applying for. And those items that are on the bottom of page 35, specifically, if you look, let me see which page I wanted to refer you to.
Could I note that the very first sentence under what types of projects can be funded?
Pardon?
In the middle of the page, it does indicate that this could be used to fund projects that will reduce or eliminate the losses from future disasters. So we're not, at this moment, applying for anything. It's more or less being ready to get funded if there's a disaster comes. So it's not like we're applying to dig a ditch for a new water line or something like that. It's a readiness kind of thing, by my understanding.
Okay, my understanding is maybe sort of similar to that, but it says projects used to protect public property or purchase property, fund projects that will reduce or eliminate losses from future disasters. So you would need to already have a project in mind to reduce or eliminate. You can't wait for the disaster to happen and then come up with a project to reduce or eliminate losses from a future disaster from one that's already happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like,
And
we
so,
could put in a lot of rocks at the base
exactly.
of the
So my
bluff.
question is, do we have specific projects already in mind that would help us reduce or eliminate losses from future? Is that something that's
Yeah,
already being
we
considered?
haven't, yeah, and part of it would be the council can, once we apply and, in part of that application, we can try to identify some projects. But generally speaking, if you look like on page 40, it identifies at least the general categories. One of them, even though there's a typo here, it says sea level rise, but it should be sea level rise. But yeah, addressing sea level rise, which would be a real reality, and tsunami would be a reality, and flooding, landslide would be a reality, which we're already experiencing, and wildfire could be a reality. So all of these, and earthquakes, all of these are categories that we can identify particular projects that can help mitigate any future disasters.
So, I don't know, maybe my head's kind of thick tonight, but I still don't feel like I'm getting an answer to my question. So right now, we're just going to apply for grants. We haven't, there aren't any projects that have been identified for this money. And so I'm not saying I'm against applying for the grants. I'm just curious as to what we're doing, and if there's a match, is there going to be a financial implication? I'm against applying for grants just because there's grants out there. It could cost the city money to obtain these grants.
Yeah.
Well.
At this point, the council is not giving any direction to apply for a grant. All you're doing with the resolution is adopting the Humboldt Operational Area Hazard Mitigation Plan. That in itself will allow us in the future to apply for the grants.
Okay, so we're not,
Right.
at the end of the week, we're not sending in an application
Right,
for a grant.
Exactly.
So there's no obligation to this?
No.
Okay.
Right.
And I have a couple of questions. Yeah, so is this kind of like a joint powers authority thing with the other entities in this? I'm looking at what it does not eligible for the PDM, and just the first check with the flood walls, seawalls, groins, jetties, dams, waterway channels. That seems like it knocks out a lot of potential projects that we would have here.
Okay.
Am I misinterpreting?
I think it says, but not limited to.
On 3753 at
Yeah.
the bottom?
Oh, 37, I was looking at a different page.
Oh, you're talking about 37?
Yeah,
Page
3753 right at the
Oh,
bottom.
yeah, again, this is the grant stuff, which right now we're not approving that. But this just
Okay.
gives you an idea of some that they're saying here are not eligible. And I think the
Yeah.
reason is that these that are listed as not eligible are basically dealing with floods. And that's
Okay.
why there's like flood insurance, that you would get and so on. So anything dealing with floods like a totally different category. But we're going to try to be dealing with everything else but floods. And fortunately, the way our city sits, we'll be facing probably some of the other disasters well before a flood would occur.
Okay.
I could note that the objectives on page 41 have each sentence there, we could brainstorm probably 3 or 4 things that we could be doing, and it would be helpful to have money to work on those projects.
So can I make another comment, Jack?
Yeah, please, yes.
So, I guess what I'm confused about, and maybe this should have been, it just seems like it's part of a package deal, so maybe the hazard mitigation, pre-disaster mitigation grant program, maybe that would have been more clear if it was a separate agenda item rather than rolled into accepting a plan, because the mitigation grant program it seems like it's totally separate from the plan, I guess, is my only point of confusion here. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one confused by that.
Okay, so as far as the, trying to see, yeah. So if you look like, for instance, on page 31, it's saying the entire plan is 526 pages and includes many color figures. A summary is included in the packet. So Becky, who's our grant administrator for the public, was trying to just give you like the executive summary of that 526-page plan.
So if I were to look at the executive summary, I would find this pre-disaster mitigation grant program as part of the executive summary?
No, the grant is separate. We're just saying that it'll allow us to apply for the grant. But if you look at the executive summary, starts on page 38. It's just the overall hazard mitigation plan for the county.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying that maybe they should be separated out, like authorization to apply for a grant would be one agenda item, and then accept, because the resolution doesn't say anything about what's behind it here.
On page 33, there's recommended actions that we could move to adopt at this moment.
And so to make application to the pre-disaster grant program and to secure funds to implement projects identified in the Humboldt operational mitigation plan. So
could I speak to this? It
Yeah.
seems to me we have two things. We probably ought to just adopt the resolution and then empower the city manager to go through the other steps, like 3, 4, and 5 of the recommended actions here. Because these are things that we are not going to be operationally involved in as a council. That our main goal tonight is to get this started, and then the various applications can be made, and he can check back with us for financial implications. We've applied for this particular grant, and it's going to have $5,000 of our matching funds, whatever. But basically, the main thing today is just to adopt the resolution.
that's what I thought too, is to just adopt the resolution, and then we discuss the grant at a separate time, or
Right.
what the projects are.
Right.
It just doesn't seem like it's part of this, like you're saying. We could do that at a later time. Is
Right.
that correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
That's right.
Yes.
So I could make a motion to
Go for it. I'll second it.
to accept number 1 from recommended actions and number 2 from recommended actions. And I guess 3 would be part of that to direct the
Well, either that.
copy of the resolution to the sheriff's office.
Could I suggest an amendment? And that is that 3, 4, and 5, we direct the city manager to carry out 3, 4, and 5. Because he's the boss.
So
of
the motion would be accept the board report and adoption resolution and approve the resolution would be the motion for this.
Mhm.
And then as an additional to the motion for the city manager to execute 3, 4, and 5.
Second the motion.
Isn't that already part of it?
Mhm. This is just the recommended actions, and
Yeah,
And
but,
he stated
but I'm
that-
trying to separate, like, adopting the policy from,
yeah.
I don't know, I'm really confused by this. I don't know why, it's been a
Yeah,
long day.
I'm not sure, I'm not sure we even need to have number 1 as part of the thing, because that's what we're doing right now.
True,
we're just
and,
reviewing it.
yeah,
So just
so we're
basically,
how about if let's scratch, I'd start over. My recommended motion is number 2, approve and adopt by resolution the Humboldt Operational Area Hazard Mitigation Plan 2020 update. And I also believe 3 should be part of, to direct the city clerk to transmit a copy of this resolution to the sheriff's office. And then at a later time, revisit the 4 and 5, which would be the grant.
Yeah, to implement the project.
So,
Okay.
yeah, but that's at a later time to revisit that and
Sure.
have further discussion.
I,
Do we have a second?
yeah, it would seem to me that we would want to include number 4 in this, that basically we're asking the city manager, because as the main operations commander of the town, he could do number 3. He can direct the clerk. We don't need to do that by resolution. He can do number 4, where we're making non-policy related changes if requested per the FEMA plan. And certainly, we could hold off on number 5 and authorize staff to make application later upon the recommendation.
I could agree to that, 2, 3, and 4 as
Okay.
part of the
So how about-
motion,
how about
and
if we-
revisit number 5 at a later date.
So basically, the motion is to adopt the resolution and direct the city manager to do 3 and 4.
Yes.
Okay, second?
Before we go on, Gabe, are you okay with everything? All right, okay. Let's,
Yeah, I got it. 2, 3, and 4, and then revisit 5 at a later time.
All
I'll
in favor?
second then.
oh, okay, we've got a second, you've got another second. All right, all in favor?
For a second.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, passes.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay. Let's move on to the discussion of decision regarding email list notification procedure and archiving public comments to the city website. So, Eli, you want to start for us, please?
Okay. Yeah, I received an email from Tom, and Tom has mentioned this at prior meetings as far as posting of materials on the website and also of the meeting notices. And we do the meeting notices once a month where Gabe will list all of the regular meetings, and then there's a caveat that there may be some special meetings during the month. And we just thought that it would be good to discuss it here. And I think maybe I could turn it over to Gabe now. He prepared the page 43, which basically addresses in general how things are currently done, because we want to see what would be the most effective and efficient way to do it for the benefit of the public, but at the same time recognizing that we have a smaller staff to work with. And I did mention as an option that, we'll see what we can do internally, and then we can always, whether it's this or whether it's other things, we can always consider possibly bringing in a temp, like maybe once or twice a month, for whatever needs to be done, because we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing, but at the same time, take into consideration that there's a lot of things that staff needs to address on a daily basis, and we don't want some of those things to fall behind. So, but we can have this discussion and try to identify what needs to be done. Gabe, did you want to address a little bit of how it's currently handled? And then Tom and whatever, we could go from there of how potentially.
Could I do a quick interrupt? I'm sorry. We didn't have a public comment on the previous motion.
You're right.
Can we halt this for just a second? And
Yeah,
go
you could
ask
halt,
for
yeah.
I'm
public
sorry, we
comment?
didn't get a public comment on the last item. That was on the resolution to adopt the area hazard mitigation plan. Did anyone have something that they wanted to state for us? I think we're safe. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let's, Matt,
Okay.
move back to...
Okay, back to
Way to
this.
stay on it.
Gabe, did you
Gabe.
want to address some? Or did you want, during discussion, interject, so?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much drew, I kind of tried to point to a direction that this conversation could go in the staff report. If it'd be helpful, we can kind of go over what our process is, which I think everyone here is on the meeting list. We could touch on that if there's anyone that has any questions about the current process or in this, just summary of what we're discussing here tonight that I put together in just a few paragraphs. But I'm open to just really want to hear what the council has to say about about these processes, because the email list, as I kind of tried to summarize in the first or second paragraph, is the city's, it's a courtesy list. We're really trying to get and encourage public engagement in our processes, and we want to do everything we can to reach out to the community to let them know what's happening. And then of course we have our legal obligations, which are to make sure that all of the council members or planning commissioners have what they need to be able to hold a meeting, make sure we have met our Brown Act legal requirements of posting in advance with a specified time, 24 hours, 72 hours notice, and posting at our legal places, also updating our electronic meeting. We never really had a discussion, this council anyway, has had a discussion about formalizing these policies. There's always been a little bit of give and take with the staff to say, hey, we've got a lot of stuff to do. We're going to let you have the discretion to get these things done in the way that you feel is balanced and consistent. And as Councilmember Davies has brought up numerous times, he wants to kind of make this a little more formal and a little more, I guess, concrete, should I say, as far as what meetings get noticed, what meetings don't, on that email list, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I would like the public to be able to have a consistent thing that happens so they know what to expect. In the past, we've had emails going out just for city council meetings and then a separate email, sometimes for PC meetings, and the argument has been from the planner that she doesn't do that. And I think if the public can rely on a consistent process, then they know what to expect. So for example, we get a once a month email that said all of the things. So that's good. I like that. I would actually prefer that it gets sent out for each when you're posting the agenda for each meeting. This is my request, so it's up to the will of the council, but that another email goes out like as a reminder type email. We all set reminders in our phones or whatever. Tomorrow is this meeting. So like when a planning commission meeting comes up, when you post the agenda, it seems like a template could be made with the hot link in it. And all you'd need to do is maybe change the date each time, and then as that's posted, just to send it out.
Send it out to 150 people.
Yeah, but it's not like you have to write 150 emails. It's just the addresses are there.
They're in a group,
Yeah, and so then my other request would be, that I'd like us to consider would be, especially for special meetings, because special meetings are generally something of importance. That's why it's a special meeting. It's time, so the last planning commission meeting was a special meeting talking about water policy, which we've heard a lot about, and yet I had to send an email. I sent an email to Bryce Kenny, would you like to go to this? I know you're interested in water policy. And he says, okay, thanks, I wasn't aware of that. So if people aren't going out, and especially in this time period, people aren't going out to look for these postings or trolling our website, which I don't think it's their job to troll the website to look for meetings if we have an email list. I did have the word courtesy process I took that as that's kind of degrading to the public. It's like, we're just sending you this courtesy that we're going to have a meeting. Our first and foremost community involvement is what we've been talking about. So I don't consider it a courtesy to send out an email.
I think it's just differentiating from the legal requirements.
I understand. Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just telling you how this is my interpretation of the staff report, and because I've been asking for this for over a year now, that word, and I'm not attacking anybody here. I'm just saying this is my interpretation of courtesy. Seems a little benevolent, like this is the city, and if you're welcome to come. And we don't really have to send you this notice other than going down to the post office and looking here, or you looking. So for the purpose of this discussion, I kind of would like to separate the email from the public comment thing, because it can get kind of murky, I think. So that's all I'm asking, is that when the agenda is posted, that an email comes out to the list that says we're having a meeting on, in 3 days or in 2 days, rather than, I like when you send out the one for the city council, that seems like a great place, because it looks like you're using a template there. It's a lot of the same things. Your verbiage is similar. You change it from time to time, change dates.
Yeah, I have it up on the screen here if anybody needs to look at it for reference, but it is a template.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of details embedded in there that we have to
change. So
if we sent one with the wrong date, we could totally screw up a lot.
Exactly. So it might behoove the city to send them out only for the meetings that are coming up, because then you've got less to look at. And by all means, I know how this works. I'm a teacher. I send out permission slips all the time. And how many times have I sent out a permission slip with the date of the field trip here and then the date of a field trip from last year at the bottom, because I didn't change all of the dates. So, maybe an email that's specific to each meeting, and maybe on this general email at the beginning of the month say, and as a reminder, regular planning commission meetings are, third Wednesday of the month, and then you don't have to deal with any dates. It's triggered on the calendar, and I do believe people could look on the calendar and say, that's the third Wednesday of the month. I'd like to go to that. But when that agenda is published for that third Wednesday of the month planning commission, an email could go out for that, and especially for special meetings. I think that's very important. I wish more people had, and I don't know if more people would have come, but I don't even know how many people were here. Elaine, did you come to the planning commission meeting? Special one? No. So that's what, if we're trying to gear up stuff, I'm just trying to have it so that everyone knows what to expect. If there's going to be a meeting, I'm going to get an email. If they've taken the time to give you their email address, then they get a thing. So that's all I have to say about the email. I answer any questions or clarify anything.
Well, okay.
Do we want to go to public first and then have the council?
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you want to start, or do you want to let them go first?
I just didn't talk after public.
Yeah, maybe same
And
thing?
do you want to split it into two parts, though?
She
Do
actually
you want to
wants
split into the email list discussion and the archive discussion?
I think we can have them, we have a huge audience out here, but I think we can probably do it both at once with this. Does anyone wish to come up and make a comment about this? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, I liked a lot.
Pull it down a little bit, please.
Oh,
There, thank you.
Okay. I appreciate, let me put it that way. I appreciate what you're talking about a courtesy is not really very inviting. So even to talk about it, like how are you perceiving, do you really want the public to come and participate? I want to participate, but that's me. But maybe some other people might not feel that they're welcome. So I feel that inviting people to come and take part in the place where they live is a really good way to encourage public involvement if you truly want it. I mean, you have to show that you truly want them to be here. On the note that I was speaking about before, just reading that, trying to read that up there, it's gray. It's very difficult to read. So I don't know why that is, but that's how it looks on my screen, on my computer, and it's how it printed out. So there it is right there again. So I don't know what to say more about that. Thank you.
Elaine? Anybody else? Okay. All right, let's bring it back to the council.
Can I make a comment?
Why don't you start?
I want to compliment Tom for staying on this, and I felt this for a number of years. We need to have more people at the meetings. We need to have people who are want to come, who want to participate, and everything we can do with our language to invite them, to encourage them, and I'd even like to propose at sometime in the future, a new agenda item, is have a 20-minute or half an hour before the meeting, volunteers bring some food and everybody snack for a little bit before the meeting, because often a little bit of food gets people in the mood. I mean, this is a wild thought I'm getting out there. Get some people here with some mechanisms. So the other thing I've been thinking about for a long time is who is on our email list? And I'd like to see something go out, and everybody here is familiar with various publications that we subscribe to. They say, okay, for example, in the New York Times, they say, here's 17 different interest groups. Which ones do you want to get information about? And so it would seem to me that we need to identify, and I've got several categories I wrote here, because I'm curious, how many are on the city's regular email list? Owners, property owners, residents, which doesn't match completely with owners, there's renters and other people, registered voters. I'd like to get several different lists, put them together, send an email out to every one of them and say, would you please opt in to the following? Agendas of weekly newsletters, short newsletters of what's going on, a variety of different things, so that they've indicated their what they want to be on and what they want to receive. And we should have, to cover ourselves legally, we should have them affirmatively say, yes, I want to be on that list. And then when we send it out, it probably goes out as a BCC, because not everybody wants to have their email address posted. But I am imagining a simple newsletter once a week that has several links in it, and the latest thing happening this week and coming up next week, or sometime in the next month and a half you want to put on your calendar. It doesn't have to be long, extensive paragraphs, just quick notices. But something coming up, I imagine a half page from the city of Trinidad, just about every person who's here. And certainly, right up the very top, in probably bold print, would be special meeting. Agenda topic so-and-so. Says, because everybody doesn't want to, people don't want to miss something that's really going to impact them, like something going to dry up their water in a drought.
Anybody else? You have any, David, did you want to add anything?
Can I respond to that?
Oh, please.
I like your idea. I don't want to, I'm not asking for that much. I'd rather just have, because of my personal habits when I look at things on a screen or something, if it's that long on a screen, I'm not going to read the whole thing. If it's that long on a screen, I'm going to read the whole thing. And I think just my goal here is just to publicize when the meetings are and have people know exactly when the meetings are, not to put another job at the city office of this week we did this, or I don't know if that's what you're.
Well, it's a
looking
function
at,
of
but-
staff time available.
Yeah.
And my main question, and has been for a number of years, who are we sending it to? I want to see a whole list of,
So maybe we could, so Gabe, how did you obtain all of these email addresses that you send out to people who have submitted them to you, correct?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's over time, it's kind of been a legacy
Uh-huh.
process. And when it originally started, it was an informational newsletter, not just agendas.
Uh-huh.
There was a couple publications that were going out at a specific time, and then it kind of evolved into being, hey, some people would say, hey, how can I hear about your what's going on? And other than this information you're putting out about specific things, whether it be, trying to create a new line of communication during droughts, we want to send out something quickly and get a lot of people as this technology was evolving. It evolved into a meeting agenda alert, basically. And I understand what you're saying, because nowadays I've seen a lot more sophisticated ways of reaching out to people. There's programs that reach out and they give you options of things you would like to connect to. The Humboldt County government offices have a really sophisticated program that you can opt into certain alerts. If you don't opt out of some and you get them all, you'll get them all day, every day, and pretty soon you're annoyed by it.
Yeah.
And we experienced a little bit of that. About 10 years ago, we started, up to about 6 years ago, we started seeing people drop off because we were sending, multiple letters from time to time, and we were having a lot of meetings during that period of time too.
Mhm.
So I didn't make that correlation specifically, but I just noticed there were more people wanting off this ride than they wanted on the ride at that point in time. So I kind of backed it off a little bit. But we can, the list, we never polled anyone, and asked them for anything. People, I think it's on the business license, at the bottom of the business license application too, that we send out. Would you like to be notified of Trinidad news and alerts?
Yeah.
So I think that maybe we're growing into that phase where we need to kind of be mindful of who's receiving this information and what they want to receive, or we just keep using it like we want to use it, and they want off, they can opt out.
Yeah, because there are programs like MailChimp
Yeah.
is something that people could just put at the bottom, unsubscribe. They don't have to call you. They don't have to do anything. And other places I've looked at have a button on their website, email notifications. Click, put in your email, and then they don't have to call you or anything. It's just automatically loaded in. So I don't know if that's a discussion that has to happen with our web provider or our website providers. I would imagine it is, but I don't know.
Probably. We'll have to look outside a little bit of the city, because it's not something that we could take on necessarily as a special project. We'd want to look what's out there, do a quick scan of maybe the most appropriate technology,
and something inexpensive and easy to use, so that it's not a burden. Because as you said, there were a lot of meetings, so I'm thinking city council, planning, and the other committees meet like once a quarter. I'm thinking maybe 5 emails a month. That would be a lot of emails, and that's not that much for people to receive 5 emails from the city, especially if they've even signed up to request that. And maybe a caveat on it could be, if there's an emergency, like you could use that email list as well for emergency notification.
Of course.
So,
That's the goal.
and just to keep it slim and and mean and hear the meetings, that's it. And that's what I'm looking for, so that's,
Well, I assume that the city staff, when I go in, I notice that you have kind of an ongoing project with updating the website, because Angela's pretty well versed in that, as far as I can tell. So I'm going under the premise that a lot of stuff isn't kind of ready to be rolled out, and then when you're getting this feedback, it kind of helps you a little. So I don't really have anything to add. I think it was a good point to make. There's some clarification, you know, that it is in layman's term, that somebody doesn't see, hey, BIS said Fonzie, you know, what does that mean to people usually? So that whole little paragraph that says it too, and you know, and I'm always a proponent for more of the round table than the head of the table thing like we do here, but we are obligated to do this as a city, but that's about my 2 cents in that.
Okay. Any more to it? I just curious. I sat with Ryan at the meeting at the last week at the Land Trust, and one of the things that I noticed is that as they were trying to get the city involved in some of the work, is him kind of looking like his head's going to explode a little bit, and we got more work to do. So how does this fit with your schedule and trying to get all this put in? Are you able? Does this look like something that is not too much extra work, or something you can fit in there without a problem?
Sending out another, like an additional email for, on these, at the end of the week, or whenever the meetings come up, you know, like Tom said, it's not a ton of work. There's nothing that we can't do pretty much inside the city hall office that we're tasked with. It's when they all pile on, you know, and I think consistency is one of our biggest and most important things. We want to make sure that whatever we're doing it consistently. And that goes for meetings that are canceled. You know, so if a meeting's canceled all of a sudden at the last minute because there's a quorum or there's not a quorum, we got to be able to not only update it on the website, not only let all the people who are attending the meeting know, we then have to go to an email and draft an email and send it out. So
We ought to have the capability of text messaging too.
yeah, well, we can expand this as far.
I don't mean to be loading us up with stuff to do, but if it's an emergency,
And especially for emergencies.
sometimes I don't look at my email for 2 days.
Yeah. So the consistency, I think, is the most important. To answer your question, is just whatever we do it consistently. And this was sort of like I'm glad that you brought it up, Tom, because it gives us a chance to poll the council, as opposed to just hearing, you know, direction from one council member. You know, we have developed, as you can see, although it's hard to read because we frankly need a new projector, because this is pretty clear on my screen, but we've developed methods of, in this email alone, and we've got a habit of putting things on the website of, you know, sort of CYA, so to speak, getting it out there in advance so that if someone does have, lucky enough to have a technology like a smartphone, they can plug in some dates on their phone and maybe an alert to come back and check the website. So we go about 90%, and honestly, we don't necessarily reach that 100% of, you know, making sure that on the moment, on the money, for these special meetings especially, you know, the public has that information on the spot. Because frankly, sometimes like this last meeting, there was a couple of dates floating around up until the very last minute when we found out there was a quorum all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then we were scrambling on a Friday to get the bases covered that we were required to cover legally. But then to have to, at the end of the day, once we've covered all our bases, we're like, oh, we forgot to do the email, you know? And that was because the meeting was in flux. And that happens with these special meetings, because now we're down to 4 planning commissioners. So, you know, it was a little bit of a safety net for us, but if you want to take our hand and say, this is now what we want you to do on a regular basis, then it's good for us, because we can kind of, when we push something else aside to get this done, we've got the backing of the full council as opposed to one council member or whatever. Because inevitably something else is going to have to be parked to get these things done. And as long as that's understood, and as long as we have the support of the council, this stuff is doable.
All right, we look like we're having discussion decisions, so I think we need to make a decision about this. So I guess we can make a motion.
Would you like me to do that?
I'd love you to do that, actually.
So I would move that, that an email alert is sent to the subscribing list for each posted agendized meeting. And so that could go out when the agenda goes up.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Any more discussion?
Discussion, whether we want to modify it, is as to who does it go out to? That was my question. Remember, there are many different, just everybody that you can find?
We have an existing list, so I would just imagine it would be the existing list
Okay.
that we already have.
Okay,
Yeah.
whatever.
And as people add,
Yep.
then they could, and, yeah.
I wonder whether you would accept amendment to that you also proceed towards some kind of response that you seek from the public to opt into this thing or opt out of, so that we have a clear idea. We clean up the list, basically.
Yes, maybe just a line at the bottom. If you no longer wish to receive this, please email
Yeah,
unsubscribe and then subject line or something like that.
something like that.
Is that
Yeah.
going to be part of the motion, or are we just going to pick your motion, or
Would you
and
accept
add
that?
this on?
Would you accept that little caveat?
Yeah, if they could just put a line that says, I don't want to be part of it anymore. Yeah, so the motion would be to notify the public for each meeting when the agendas are posted via email. Provide a message on the email that says unsubscribe if you no longer want to receive this.
Yeah,
That-
hyperlink.
I guess that, so aside from the motion, that could just be on your template, right at the bottom. You don't have to type it in every
Sure.
time.
You second that?
Okay, we do have a suggestion from the audience. Would you like to hear?
Sure.
Yeah, would you, if you'd like to come up, please come up, though.
It's really a question because you're talking about your email list, the existing email list. Well, what about people who don't even know about the email list? How do you reach out to let your community know that there's an email list? Do they want to be on it? Like me.
Mhm.
I'm not on it. I'd love to be on it.
Right,
How-
that'd be
how
on the
does that happen?
website.
So maybe
on our website.
I could amend my motion and say, explore the option of adding an email notification button on our website. See how that would pan out.
Good thought.
If you
Tom.
want to be on our email list,
Yeah.
then you're boom, right?
Okay,
when
do you
go to
second,
the-
you second that amendment?
Sure.
Yeah, second.
Okay, so
I'll
we've
second.
got a motion and a second on a variety of motions, I think, but all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good. Thank you.
And so
Aye.
the second part was about public comments on
Okay.
the city website. So I often hear people will come up and they'll read a letter, and then they'll say, I'd like this entered into public record. And I know that the current procedure is that everything is housed in a binder at the city office, but that requires you to go to the city office or call or email the city office to request if any public comments have been made, which is also a time-consuming process for the city staff. Other cities I've seen actually, on ours, what Gabe has it up here, please submit something by 2 o'clock or something like that, or the day of the meeting. By 2 p.m. the day of the meeting, or by email. And so some places, they will actually even post, so if you get it in by 2 o'clock, it goes on it's inserted into the packet that's online. So I know that it would be too late to insert it into the council's packet, but it could, I've looked and they're time stamped on their websites, like Arcata, for instance. The day of a meeting, there's stuff time stamped, and their cutoff is a little bit later in the day. So it's 3 o'clock, and it's online in the packet, so that someone could look at it. And I've seen people out here with their devices, looking at the thing, and so they're in there with the agenda item. So I don't know what the process is for putting up the packet and how hard it would be, but I would I would shoot for the goal of, if public comments are sent in by, let's say, 2 o'clock day of the meeting, that they are posted to the website so everyone has access to them. And then if people come to the meeting and say, I would like this entered into the public record, after the meeting, it is also posted. So for example, I know when at our last city council meeting, Bryce Kenny brought a letter, a very detailed analysis of the staff report and the draft policy. And he submitted it to all of us, but for all I know, I don't know where that exists. I'm assuming that it exists in City Hall, but it is not on the website for anyone who's, like you were saying earlier, researching this. So if you're going, I want to look at what everybody said about water policy, you're not going to see that. It is in the packet for the Planning Commission, which happened after the City Council meeting. So that's good. It's in and that's what I'm looking for. Like anybody that wants to take the time to submit public written comment, it gets posted online so people don't have to call, waste city staff time, or consume. I'm not going to say waste because they get the information. It's not wasted, but consume time saying, could you make a copy of this? Could you email this? And I've never looked at the binder in the City Hall, but I don't imagine that we get like 5 written public comments a day in there to post on the website. So I'm not sure how much extra time this would take. It would seem like it would be negligible. Gabe's staff report does say that, there's a lot of people coming in, asking questions, clarifying. So that leads me to believe there are people interested in these things, but we're not hearing from those people directly. The only people that are hearing this might be Eli or Gabe. But we're not, if they're not taking the time to write it down, or if they have something written down when they come in, that could be considered public comment and posted to the website. So that's my vision.
Gabe, could you let us know, how about helping us out with this in terms of what you see when we talk with this in your job? How does that work?
Yeah, I'll see what I can do here. So this is, I know it's hard to read, we need a projector, and that's another project, and we'll get that done soon. But for what we can see here, if you're able to read this, or this is just an example. So Bryce's comments. I mean, I think sometimes we maybe underestimate the importance of the minutes, at least from my perspective, because this is like one of my key components. I do a lot of things for the city, but this is like if there was one core thing a city clerk does for the city, it's record the proceedings of the minutes and stuff, of the meetings. Right. And in the minutes, and this is what I use oftentimes, even years from now, to kind of retrace our steps as to what happened and how things take place and what decisions were made, is we will archive, at least, at minimum, for instance, Bryce's comments that Tom just mentioned. Here's how it was written in the minutes, read from a prepared letter dated February 10th, submitted to the city clerk. So should someone be interested in finding out what happened at that particular meeting, and especially when someone says, I would like my comments read into the public record, this is an example of how that works. I would then summarize, which I did, in the minutes, that letter, but that is sort of the breadcrumb that then is left for people who want to know more. They read the minutes, they miss the meeting, they read the minutes, they really want to see a copy of that letter. Posting the letters online as a group is the next step. It varies from city to city. In the city of Blue Lake, you couldn't find anything such on their website. Their minutes are usually less than 1 page. Which is just the way they do things. If you go to the city of Arcata, they have a whole section, but they have their whole process is digitized. Every council member, uses this particular software to make their contributions to a meeting discussion, and that does make things a little easier when everybody in a staff is and then you have the city clerk's office has 4 or 5 people. You can do things quickly. They have a section called oral correspondence on their website, which then they publish digitally every letter that was written to supplement a conversation at a city council level. So you could go, I don't know about the timing on this, if it's something that's done before a meeting or if it's something that's archived afterwards. I could be a fan easily of the afterwards, but the time leading up to a meeting is generally pretty chaotic. And ever since we moved the meetings to Tuesdays, it gives us even less time to do stuff. So if the council sees the written correspondence as a way to maybe publicize the discussion and rally people from the outside to come in and see it their point of view, then yeah, putting things up before a meeting would be useful. But if the council sees written correspondence as comments to convince the 5 of you who are the elected representatives of the city, to persuade you to think one way or the other, then archiving those minutes after the meeting should be just as helpful and useful to the process. It just kind of depends on how you see those written comments. I would say the earlier the deadline, the better. 2 o'clock the day of the meeting, forget it. We're just not going to be able to do all that. I mean, it takes me half a day to set the room up on the day of the meeting. And if somebody sends something in at 5 o'clock, they are 4:59, and apparently it has some kind of bearing on the decisions that's going to be made tonight, and I missed it because I was in here trying to set up the technology. I think that's a little unfair of a burden to put on, myself or anybody in this position for that matter. So if there's going to be a deadline on written public comments, if we see them as comments that need to be online so that we can convince people out there in the world to come to a meeting, then we need to make a deadline as, maybe it's noon on Monday. I mean, if we're going to continue our meetings on Tuesdays, that would just be my recommendation, but or suggestion, I should say. I mean, I'll go with whichever way the wind blows here. But I work for the city.
I appreciate those comments, and I view the written comments in both ways, like people letting me know what they believe, and also for people in the audience to read and go, you know what, there's somebody who has the same line of thinking that I have, and maybe I'd like to go support that, or I don't agree with what they say, I'd like to refute that at the meeting, so they can see that there's either camaraderie or whatever's going to happen, either via the web, there's camaraderie. Oh, look at all those people. Like, for example, when the Coastal Commission met up here, I looked at all of those comments that were posted online and said, wow, there's a lot of people that are against this, and there's a few people for. That's an interesting argument, and I got to see everything. So I would be a proponent of, so if they're submitted before, and I would be okay with a Monday deadline to put it up. And if it's easier for you guys, because I don't know how your website works, but because it looks like you upload an entire PDF, one PDF as a link, and it's not like in a folder.
Yeah.
So, then maybe there could be a PDF titled
Written
public comment.
Yep.
Yeah,
Dated for the city council meeting. It could be under the same date, and then people, it's not in line with all of the agenda items, like you're saying Arcata does, because they have the software that just starts inserting stuff, which is pretty cool, but we're small, and so I don't expect it to be the same. So maybe just a separate document. And then when people come, let's say Elaine and Carpani came tonight and they brought letters saying, I'd like this, then, after the meeting, they could be, that PDF could be amended or something, or additional comments, whatever's easiest. I'm not looking for it to be super clear cut and clean. I'd like it to be that way, but I understand our parameters, so you could say public comment submitted, prior to meeting, and then maybe another PDF that says public comment submitted during meeting. And then for the next, we'll do public comment, and we'll let these guys talk. I'm not the mayor, but I'm sorry.
You're on now.
But does that make sense? So I'm not asking that it go lockstep with the packet that you put out on Friday. It could just be an additional PDF that's uploaded for the same meeting date, like on the last meeting, it says, additional information, water policy map, or like it did last time.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
I just, real quick question for Eli. We've discussed the possibility of maybe hiring someone who could come in and do some of this work that could take the load off Gabe and be able to do something like this where, hey, you could have someone come in the day of the meeting and see if they could put a few of these things up. So Gabe wouldn't have to worry about it, but we could get them up if we thought that was appropriate.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, and certainly, between Gabe and Angela, they can, hopefully help identify, certain times, like the day of the meeting would be possibly one, or maybe the day before, or whatever, and then we can bring in, the good thing about temps is you're not bound to anything. So, if 1 month we try a couple days and then the next month we need less or more, it's flexible. And then the other option, which our mayor suggested as an option, is possibly tapping into HSU students that, could be, come in here and then, maybe they might have a skill on putting things online and so on. So whichever area of skill that they might have, so it might be helpful for them too.
I wouldn't think it'd be a good idea to make that motion that we want to have somebody come in and do that. I mean, we'd like to have that done, but we couldn't. I don't think we could guarantee it. But I'd hate to put that on Gabe, but I think a nice idea would be to set a time on Monday that you feel we could get things done and you could do the work.
Well, can we add too? I mean, how far does this go? Does this go planning commission? Does this go special meetings, regular meetings? I mean, is this now, what I need to know is are we talking about a policy that carries forward to every meeting that we have? Which I would recommend, although that's going to add up to be, it could add up to be a lot of work. It's just a lot of extra tasks. So I just don't want to say this is only for the council, or is this for planning commission? Is this for special meetings?
I would recommend for everything. I would recommend across the board because people want to comment on, like Bryce's comments appeared online for the planning commission meeting. Those were the same comments that he previewed here, but people got to see them online for the planning commission meeting if they were looking. So I would suggest everything.
So I'm thinking that it be the day before the meeting by noon.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
And
like I said, my goal here is I want to get it on, like, this can be changed at some point if it's not working. We could discuss that, but I want to get everything online and out there so people can see what the discussions are or participate in the discussion.
Well, and I thought you'd want to not only make it noon of the day before the meeting, but also after the meeting to get whatever was not put in there to make sure.
Yeah, if somebody brings something.
That'll be post-meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like some of the meetings, emails have been sent in the day before, and we have copies of them, but the public doesn't have a copy of them, and they're like, I don't know what you're referring to, or the letter is being summarized to everybody, and often maybe depending on your viewpoint, the summary is not really reflective of what the letter actually said. So if it was posted afterwards, then everybody could at least see the intent of the letter and interpret it for themselves rather than have somebody else interpret the content of the letter. And tonight nobody submitted anything. I mean, so tomorrow you wouldn't have to put anything online because nothing was submitted, and then everything submitted starting tomorrow to your office or whatever would just go in the bank for the next city council meeting. It's not like I'm asking you they submitted it on the 10th. I got to upload it with the date of the 10th. You just put it in that document for the next city council meeting.
Well, I think, Tom, you sound like you're ready to put a motion together. Do you want to just try that
Is there
now?
any public comment?
Yes,
No,
too
I
bad.
think you got a lot worked
I'm
out,
sorry.
a lot he's going to have to come back.
Yeah, I forgot we haven't done public comment. I got issues.
So when you were talking about the PDF and the submitted comments, letters, documents, whatever, would that PDF also include public comment, spontaneous public comments? Like, I didn't submit anything, but I came in and I spoke at the first comment period.
So
not these, but the comment period.
I'm only advocating for written,
So what
submitted
about
public comment.
public comments from people who come to your meeting and there's a spontaneous comment? they've planned to speak or they haven't. They're here and they're going, wait a minute, I need to talk about that. So they speak.
That's what our minutes are for.
Where's that comment?
That's what the minutes are for. It'll come up and it'll show up in the minutes.
Okay, and in addition to that, we've been talking on a staff level about getting the recordings of the meetings online.
And
so
that
that this way, all of their verbal comments will be on the audio tape online.
Thank you, and that was going to be my next comment. That's what's the beauty of something like Access Humboldt, where after a meeting, everybody in your town can go to Access Humboldt and watch the meeting.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. That's what I love about Arcadis. Thank you.
Could I make a note to that? Where the city is larger, we only have 350 people. And when you've got thousands of people, you've got the facilities that can pay for storage rooms for the equipment. We've explored for this hall what it would take to permanently keep equipment here that Humboldt Access requires, and it's a major hit for this town. So we have been desirous of going on Access Humboldt, but the financial hit for us is huge.
Can I add something?
Sure.
real quick?
Go ahead,
And
Gabe.
on that note, it would be, I will always say this, and I say it a lot in the office, is that there's no task that's too big for us. I mean, everything that comes in, we can handle it. It's the volume. It's having to prioritize, having
Priorities,
to move
right.
things around, because it's amazing how much activity this little town drives. I mean, it's amazing to me. I'm amazed every day I come to work. It's not about what I want. I never come to work thinking what I want to do. It's always, what do I have to do today? What do I have to do by the time I go home? So when we're adding these, this is no longer a discretionary thing. This is what you have to do. It'll be important just to kind of reflect on these when we have our budget, when we talk about staffing, because it's easy to throw out mandates, but when it comes down to doing the budget, like Eli's saying about temporary staff, I don't know if we're there yet. It's good to know that it might be there if we need it. So these things are all good conversations to kind of put in your pocket to bring back up in June when it's like, I've heard the council say before, like, I don't want to hear about what we can increase. Let's talk about what we can cut. So when we have conversations like this that make our jobs more firm, we need the wind too in our sails when it comes to having the staff to do this stuff. So I appreciate it.
Right, and we appreciate that you're telling us this, so we can.
Yeah.
We're not trying to ruin your life.
No.
Yeah.
No, none of this stuff is too complicated.
Yeah.
In fact, it's really exciting. Some of these assignments, like thinking about how we can modernize our technology.
That's great.
Yeah, I like the
Modernize
text
this stuff. I mean, it's all great. I come to work with that on my list, but then by the time it's 5 o'clock, I'm like, what the heck just happened to the day? I don't know where it went. So anyway, thanks for your.
Just ask, is there, Elaine, anybody else, did you want to come up? Okay, I think we've covered everything. I think it's time we can make a motion if you'd like, or more comments.
So I would move that all public written comment submitted by 12 o'clock Monday before the meeting be posted online, and all public written comments submitted at the meeting be posted online after the meeting is over, under the same date, so people know where to look.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any more comment? All right, I think we can take a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Can I ask you a question, Gabe, which I'm not, does our copy machine have the capability of copying things and emailing it straight to you?
It can scan
Okay,
and send to my computer. Yeah.
and send to your computer.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to have a scanner or something else.
No, the same machine will do it.
And it'll
scan
digitally
it.
transfer it to your computer, and you can just upload it.
That's
Okay.
good, yeah.
And I think we ought to try to kind of keep this in mind as we move on, because keep following up on how things are going and how we're doing with this. Keep us informed, Gabe.
You got it.
All right. The next item is the November 2020 city election and sales tax measure. So, Eli, I think you're going to present that to us, right?
Yeah. So again, like it was mentioned, we're going to be having a special meeting, our regular meeting technically, but it'll be the second meeting of the month on March 24th. So at that meeting, we'll have several things on the agenda, and one of them will be this item. So this is basically like a placeholder, but at the same time, we wanted, Gabe prepared this, but we wanted to trigger in your mind, to be thinking about what you would like to see or talk about then. But basically, so far, Gabe has identified addressing, number one, how much does the 0.75% sales tax generate? And number two, how much do we get in overall sales tax? And number three, summary of the city's revenues and their relationship to the larger revenue picture. And then whatever else you think might be helpful in trying to address this issue, because we do have a small community with a limited budget, and that budget is going to become probably even tighter when you talk about, number one, the fee to trust with the harbor, so we'd lose revenue there to the Rancheria, and then the potential proposed hotel and interchange and possibly a gas station and whatever could affect the business in town and our tax revenue in town too. And then also we've been generating not only the regular rent from the cell tower on the Trinidad Head, but since September 1st, we're generating an additional 50%. So all of that revenue is going to disappear once the new sites are located, which will be a little bit later on this year. So taking all that in consideration, there's a real need for additional revenue to operate the city. And one of the good things about sales tax is that, especially when you're a small community, is that there's a lot of people who come to this community, and then they're actually paying for part of the tax support of the city, rather than the whole burden of operating the city falling on the residents of the city.
Okay. Good point.
But if you have anything else that you would like added or asked for
we're going to be revisiting this at the special meeting.
at the special meeting.
I'd like to see as hard a data as possible. I think in spreadsheets a lot, or at least little cells of one sort or another. And I'd like to see the estimate as close as we can get to what we are getting from the 0.75% sales tax now. What comes in from the regular sales tax? How much is our budget? How much is likely to be lost if a gas station goes in? And each of these little elements, we need to kind of see in thousands of dollars what's the net effect. We need to be able to look at it, because trying to add all these things up in our head in air is just not going to compute.
Yeah, it would be hard to predict, what the impact would be of losing, some of the unknown revenue, meaning, gas station or
but we could say
as far as gas sales or whatever.
Probably going to be something at least to 30%. We could make that estimate. It might be a whole lot more. Who knows?
Yeah.
But but at least if we put the estimates on paper and we grapple with them, and we're also looking at there are other financial issues on both sides. That it's a budget discussion.
Right.
It's a motivation discussion. At the time the sales tax was passed, the folks who were trying to get it passed came up with a little slogan of this will cost you as much as a cup of coffee a day or something like that. We need to have some little hook like that that convinces people that this is not that huge an expense, if that's our desire, or what are they getting for it? And we have to be thinking as marketers if that's important, because otherwise we're going to suffer some severe budget issues that we have to confront.
Yeah, Gabe can probably share this also, but the most important part is that as a city, we identify, what the budget looks like, what the revenue looks like, and so on, and then we place it on the ballot. But unfortunately, the way the law is written, we can't really market it. We can't say, vote yes on it. We just basically put it on the ballot and, you know, in general terms. So we'll try to find out exactly how much we can say and what we can do, but we don't want to violate the part of the law.
I appreciate that,
regarding
but we would certainly be collecting the data.
Right.
And then we have friends in town who would form an independent committee to, as there always is for something like this, because there will be committees against it also.
Right.
But at least we want to operate from as much data as possible.
Sure.
How hard would it be to find out what the voting percentage was last time?
We have that information,
So
yeah.
maybe next time bring that
Yeah.
to say
I'll add that to the list.
for and against, and is it a 50%?
It's a majority, simple majority.
Simple majority, 51%.
A special, like what is it, a tax that's
Targeted.
for a specific use needs a
Two-thirds.
two-thirds majority.
Yeah,
Super.
because
And
we've
this is a
discussed that in the
general
past.
fund, general tax, so 51%,
Yeah.
simple majority.
Do you remember, was it close last time? I think it was pretty,
I don't remember exactly. It wasn't that close.
I
You know,
think so.
60 something. Yeah, it wasn't like a nail biter or anything.
and we're going to return to this on the 24th, and we'll be, before we leave today, we'll be going over the meeting of the 24th and explaining that. So we're down to, unless there's more comment, are we okay? I'm going to move on. All right? Unless, did we have, I don't think we got public comment on that, so does anybody have anything they'd like to jump up and say? All right, then we can move on to the update on the Planning Commission and committee vacancies. Eli?
Yeah, we just wanted to get this out again to the public, that we do have vacancies on both the Short-Term Rental Advisory Committee and the Planning Commission, and I believe the Trails also?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all three of those have vacancies, and we're encouraging the public to participate and get involved in, voicing their opinions and helping shape the decision-making in these respective bodies.
Any comments from the council?
Would it be possible to have it posted somewhere who's on each of these committees and when their terms are up? And then if, like, I'm assuming that there's a new person on the short-term rental advisory committee from the planning commission. I'm not aware of who that is or if they've appointed anybody yet.
Is there anybody new?
I'm not sure, but I think it may be Cheryl Kelly, who's the current chair.
Planning Commission.
That could be.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's attending the meetings. I don't know if have there been any meetings where she's attended?
The next meeting is in April, so,
And-
yeah, so we haven't had a meeting.
And doesn't the planning representative need to be
A city resident, I
approved,
think, or they have to be appointed by the planning commission.
Yeah.
but not like certified by the council?
No,
It's just- they just, the plan, okay.
That's what I think happened last time. The planning commission appointed the representative and then they came to the meetings. But we have to approve the city
Right.
representative that's going to apply.
Right.
Any other comments? Is there any public comment? Anybody who makes a public comment also will be automatically given a position on one of these, so if anybody would like to speak, no, I'm just
No
kidding.
pressure.
No, but any public comment? Okay. So anything else? It comes back to the council, or any have other questions?
No,
All right, I think we've covered that. Thank you. The last thing that we want to do before we meet in closed session is to look ahead first to the March 24th meeting. Eli, you have, maybe you can fill us in on what we're going to do at that meeting.
Yeah, so number one is the sales tax. Number two will be the stormwater. We have a meeting coming up on Monday to go over some details between the city's project and of course the Rancheria's project, but that one probably won't be happening until next year, but ours is scheduled for this year, so we'll need to get some paperwork in place. So that'll be the second item. And a third item that was mentioned to have on the agenda is to talk about the Galindo Trail and where we go with the Galindo Trail. So those three items so far
All right.
for the 24th.
So if that was, I don't know what was discussed at the Van Wyck connectivity meeting, but if anything was brought up about the Galindo Trail, will that be brought?
It wasn't mentioned at the last
Okay.
meeting.
All right.
Yeah.
Or was it mentioned at a previous meeting with stakeholders?
Yeah, well, it was, when it was mentioned here, so we
Yeah.
wanted to put it on the agenda. And when I have the agenda review meeting, so both the mayor and mayor pro tem thought, okay, you know, since that's been mentioned,
Yeah.
let's put it on and let the community talk about it.
Yeah, I'm asking if, when you met with the property owners and such down there, was this brought up at all?
Not the Galindo Trail.
Okay.
We're strictly talking about Van Wyck and the Van Wyck Trail, and then along Edwards, this proposed
Yeah.
sidewalk and so on, but everything with the connectivity project.
Okay.
And Steve we had talked about possibly getting a Galindo Trail on this, but Steve really wants to be part of that. So he wants to have this meeting so we can really work on that. The other thing we want to look at is, I think there's kind of two things here. One is future agenda items for next month, but we also may wish to just be concerned with this March 20th deadline if we want to do any kind of a public meeting, or is there something we want to try to look at to try to beat this deadline?
Is that for the,
Public comments on the.
Comments on the
on the
hotel.
BIA.
and that's March 20th though, didn't you say?
Yes,
They're
so it's coming
due
up.
by March 20th, yeah, the comments.
A week from Friday.
Yeah, so,
So we'd have to have a special meeting.
or we'd have to,
Well, the public comments are just something you would do on your own. I mean,
Yes.
you could-
Oh, no.
But-
Individually, we could comment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was requested tonight, and if we could discuss, do we want to agendize providing a forum for the public to come and comment, and somehow
Right.
collate those comments maybe as part of, like if this, last time, let me get this clear, what we were commenting on, before the Coastal Commission meeting, I guess the city wrote a letter with comments.
right.
And so maybe the listening to the public, then directing the city to write public comments to submit on the city's behalf for the Fonzie,
Right.
I think was what we were talking
Yeah, they
about.
put 'em all together.
And we're needing also to integrate the hearings of the Planning Commission on the water, because that has been fairly recently there, and it'd be good to tap in probably to, if we were going to have a meeting, maybe a subcommittee of just a couple of volunteers of us to meet with Richard and probably Richard and Ted, who are on top of this thing,
Mhm.
and say, okay, what do you want us to discuss? Because they're spending a lot more energy focusing on it than I personally am. But I'd like to know what kind of things we should be.
Yeah,
I have sorry, go ahead.
I can take some back because I'll be, going to the planning commission next week as the liaison. I didn't make it last month because there was some stuff going on with the schedule, and then by the time I knew about it, it
So the
was
planning commission is the 18th?
18th, yeah.
And
It sounded like Richard said they have a draft policy that they're submitting to the city council. So do you know if they have a draft policy or that we could review, or?
No, the only thing that I know of for sure was the draft policy that came to the council already, trying to get more public input. And then it's been sent back, but I didn't know if they've progressed.
What the result was from the special meeting that was on
Yeah.
I don't remember what day it was, last Tuesday or something like that?
The last Wednesday.
Wednesday,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, last Wednesday.
Yeah, because it sounded to me like Richard said that they had a policy that they were ready to submit to us tonight and during his public comment. So maybe that's something to check
Yeah.
on with Trevor.
Okay.
What do you see as maybe a route that we could take to try to put this together for the city and for us individually? Us individually is not a problem. And just to add to that, you have a copy that you're given, the report that was given to us. Do you think you could put that into our boxes tomorrow so we could look at that and have that available? Or emailed
That's
to
just
us?
isn't that just the certified letter that came to like everybody?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's, all that is an announcement that there was a negative declaration, and public comments are supposed to be submitted by March 20th.
Right.
I mean, that would be great to post too.
Well,
but-
it
That
has
thing-
the
and that thing
information.
has behind it a 900-page report.
Yeah,
that's
that's
the thing is
just
it
an
It
announcement.
gives you the directions to get to the.
Yeah, so that would
So
be
you,
good.
I was just thinking so we would have a way to get to it easily.
Yeah.
And also, Eli, do you see us, what would be a good way for us to move, to maybe do something quickly and as a city, or
Yeah, it's,
can we
you know, I
direct that,
mean-
or is that possible?
well, the only thing that we could do if we wanted to, other than individually writing letters, but if we wanted to set up a meeting, then we'd have to schedule a meeting, which today is the 10th, so a week from today would be the 17th, and then, of course, we're having the meeting on the 24th.
And
So, I mean, we could schedule a meeting on the 17th, basically, not necessarily a city council meeting, but we could have it like as a public forum in response to some of the public that spoke at the meeting today requesting such a meeting. So it would be like a public forum that's held here to discuss those issues and get input that could be provided in response to the to that document.
Is that what happened before there was a big hotel project? City council was up here. I wasn't on the city council at the time. Was that considered a city council meeting? Do you remember what I'm talking about? There were a lot of people in here, and people were lined up to make comments, and they were directing the comments at the city council.
It still would end up probably being a city council meeting as soon as there's 3 of us here.
Yeah, it would be noticed but it would, I don't remember if that was set up as like a decision or just a discussion item.
I think it was just a discussion. My memory serves, I think it was just an opportunity for people to provide input.
Uh-huh.
But that was when the project was fairly new.
Yeah.
I mean, that was before we made the comments that have been already submitted.
Yeah, that's where I believe that's where the city formulated the letter
Yeah.
that they sent to the Coastal Commission. So
Yeah.
my vision would be that that's what happens again for this. The cities should make a comment on this FONSI, and we could gather comments at that special meeting, and then
Yeah.
have to write a letter pretty fast because it's due on the 20th.
Right.
Substantive.
Yeah, we'd have to have some wordsmiths that would agree to take some electronically transmitted suggestions from the public, integrate them into a document, and I'm thinking of something that's maybe 2 or 3 pages long, maximum, but that has 6 or small number of very defined points that we want to assert,
Yeah.
call
So
your
maybe-
attention to these things.
So I guess what we're deciding, Jack, is if we want to have
Yeah, I think that's
a meeting, that falls under our future.
right. Well, and we'd have to do it right away, so, again, I'm trying to think of, I don't even have a calendar in front of me, but. Eli, so-
Tuesday the 17th is St. Patrick's Day. If you're planning on drinking much, might be a different day, but I'm not, and it's free on my calendar. Monday
Yeah.
is also possible. There's
Yeah, I
nothing
know
sacred
I
about it.
too.
I wish I brought my phone now, I'm not sure.
I'm free Monday or Tuesday. It would have to be like a 6 o'clock start time.
Mhm.
'Cause I have-
I think it would be appropriate, and when we notice it, how much time do we need to notice it for a special meeting? It really is just 24 hours.
24 hours.
But it would be good if we could notice it as soon as possible to encourage people to prepare succinct points that they want to make that could be sent to us in electronic form so that a team of 1 or 2 of us and maybe one other person, Ted or Richard, would assemble it on their computers on Thursday or something like this. Take the results of the meeting and put it together.
So,
Yeah, because these go in the Federal Register when we do stuff like that, and they do edit them for substantive comments too, so I like that idea, pulling together, getting all the brains that we got around here
But
to make sure that we're
if
getting
we
our
as a
point.
group voted 3 out of the 5 on 5 basic points, the essence of the points, but we let wordsmiths pull it together,
Yeah.
And we delegate it to be sent by the city manager with our imprimatur that we voted that these are the 5 topics that we want to be sure are in there, something like that.
Well, we also want to get people there, so I think we need to, get the word out. So, Gabe, is that something we can put together and get some word out on a date and try to get people here?
Sure.
So,
With a smile.
So anyway, I just wanted to interject to make sure the direction we're going in. So basically, like I said, I mean, one option is to, what I would call, facilitate a public meeting, because several people from the public indicated that they thought it would be good to have a meeting to bring the public out to discuss their views on this. So if we did facilitate a public meeting, we could have it in a sense that whatever the public says, then we could leave it up to possibly Ted and Richard or whomever to, just convey this is what was said at that meeting. In other words, okay, people send letters, but at this, facilitated public forum, these were comments that were made, and send it that way. The other option is if we have it as a city council meeting, a special city council meeting, then the question would be, like if we did identify like 5 points or whatever, is that going to be a city position or what? So I'm looking at it whether we're facilitating trying to get the public views out there so that they would be responding on the FONSI, or whether the city wants to make a statement on the FONSI.
I basically heard that they want the city to take a stand, which would imply that the city identifying points that we could agree on that had merit to us. And for years we've been talking about the fact if the hotel goes up, our sales tax revenue is going to go down. I mean, that's a very important issue. Just from the point of view of the city, that the availability of water was going to be severely constrained if in any way that we are committed to back up the hotel's water plans. Those things I think are pretty obvious, and we ought to have our city council signatures on it, and noting that there were 15 other people in this small town who showed up, or something like that. I don't know.
And I think the other thing is a moratorium. If we're looking at a potential moratorium, it might be nice to have the whole community be able to state that at a meeting and say this is an important part of this, because I do agree that with the water supply being so low and it looks so dangerous for the summer that we may need to take some action. I mean, it's just a possibility, but I think it'd be to strengthen our stand. What about both? We could bring people in and say, well, we're looking for a city, the city to write a letter.
Oh, you're saying both? Yeah, I mean, we could approach it that way. So the other thing regarding like the moratorium, the way I'm looking at it is we're already proceeding down the path of a water policy. And then once that water policy comes to the council, then ideally the council would study that water policy and then determine the direction to move forward from the water policy and how that should be shaped.
So it wouldn't be.
But rather than unilaterally going ahead and putting on a moratorium, without taking all that information in and making that informed decision. So that's what I'm questioning.
But
what would be the better approach?
We're trying to walk a tightrope,
Right.
not setting firm policy on moratorium at this point,
Right.
but saying the city is formulating its water policy, and it will no doubt include restrictions, especially during type of drought. And that this hotel project is obviously going to significantly impact, and something like wording that would get in there that would state the essence of our plans without necessarily committing to exactly that point, because we have to have the whole shell of the policy itself decided on later. It's the calendar's bothering me here. I think everybody's bothered by it. It'd be better if we'd had the policy in hand, and then we could decide on the hotel later.
Yeah, when I suggest a moratorium, I'm not suggesting that we actually do it, but at least we have support for it if it comes to that. I'm trying to, that would be a place
So
we
that
might
would
pick
just-
that up.
So maybe we should just redirect to, we're talking about scheduling a date and then come up with what public can comment on, rather than comment on like impacts to the area and development.
Yes.
So that could open it up to anything.
Sure.
And so now, and then we're not discussing any policy right
No,
now.
no, I wasn't, I was just,
No.
yeah, I was more concerned with, as Eli was saying, we have to be careful about what we're even considering at this point that might be decided at that meeting. But your suggestions of, I think, guiding the public by saying, and it would be good if they could compose things. Certainly, if they have something that's off the top of their head, it's pretty good. Taking notes on it, and that would be included too. But if they can give something that would help our wordsmithing, would it be? Because we've got to get the letter in. That's the key point.
And Eli, do you have any? Are you okay with? I mean, is this something you think's a good thing for us to do?
Either way, I'm just trying to make it where, we realize that, number one, we want to hear from the public and make sure that their views are conveyed. But on the other hand, whether or not we want to make a city position, which could evolve from the meeting, which would be fine. But yeah, like when I look at the public in general, I always am thinking about the whole city of Trinidad, and what is beneficial for the city and for the 350 some residents that we have. Sometimes when you have meetings, could be any kind of meeting, you might get 20 people or 30 people vocal on one side or the other. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's number one in the best interest of the city, and number two, the reflection of all 350 people. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do, we do it in the interest of the whole city, rather than what may end up being like, okay, some people want this or some people want that. So, but
whoever was available at that night.
yeah.
All right. So we need to look at a date if we're going to do this, and decide if we think it's a worthwhile idea. So, sounds like we do think it's a good idea. Can we put a date together and get that prepared for that?
Now, what we can do is, I would think that Tuesday the 17th would be ideal, because it'll give some time before the 20th. And I'm just mentioning the Tuesday because I'm here on Tuesday. On Mondays and Wednesdays, I'm teaching at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
To 7:30.
That's a very good day. I suggest we do it Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, can we all do that? Are we
I
able?
think
Okay.
so, yeah.
Well, let's look at Tuesday the 17th. And Gabe, can you get stuff ready for the meeting? What are we going to have? What do we want to send out to the public? Do we have a
Impacts of the hotel.
Discussion of potential impacts
of the hotel?
Well,
That's not-
development.
Huh?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just
generalized
so that we can
development.
have
Okay,
Do you guys
water
know,
supply.
is this Fonzie, is this just for the hotel, or does it include the interchange also?
I think
I believe it's only for the hotel.
I think,
From
yeah,
what I read, it's only for the hotel.
the interchange is still a ways off, so they haven't gotten to that. This is the hotel.
But once they
And
get the
Gabe, you okay with this? If you,
I haven't looked at the calendar to see if this is even available,
that's,
but,
set a tentative date.
I mean, we can certainly just, it's the city's building, we can push whoever out of it, I guess, if there's something going
But
on.
we
Okay,
can,
we're
we
supposed
can,
to-
we can also meet in the small room. We've had a number of meetings in past years in the small
I
room.
don't know about this one.
it may be a big one.
Let's see.
Okay,
Although it is St. Patrick's Day,
yes.
we're inviting, you're basically inviting.
Well, there's
five,
there's another issue that we want to be concerned about, and that is the coronavirus and a large group of people.
Yeah, yeah. I guess we have to make that decision, because otherwise we're just going to be getting letters if we don't do it that way.
Yeah,
Don't shake hands.
that might be better.
I'm starting to get hesitant.
I would say to go for the letters right now, because
So we're-
just arrange another meeting right now when we're already doing one the 25th.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, we all know that's a lot on our schedule. So, and Gabe is not really excited about it, I can tell you that.
I just think it could
Well-
be big, and there could be a lot of comments, and we would have, Wednesday, maybe Thursday to compile everything that comes.
Yeah, you'd have to send it out Thursday.
The groups have quite a following, I imagine.
Well,
They had an opportunity.
one thing by bringing him in here, I understand the problem with the coronavirus, but by bringing him in here, it gives him a chance to really hear us. hear them and we can get ideas down. So I like the idea of a meeting. I hate the idea of a meeting, but I like the idea of being able to bring people in and getting this done because I think it's pretty important. So I guess we got to make a decision. So Dwight, what do you think? What do you feel about this?
Oh, the public said they wanted to weigh in.
Oh, that's right. It's sort of a non-agenda
Yeah,
item, but
Yeah, we're just discussing a future agenda item, but,
yeah.
but you want, go ahead.
Yes, well, if you'd like to say, well, maybe brief, we're going to try to go through this pretty fast, but please do.
I just think it's a really excellent idea to invite the public to make comments on it, because people are talking about it, and they want to be heard, and they
Right.
want to be heard live, not
I
just
agree.
on a letter. They want to do it face to face.
I agree. So Dwight, you're on. You think we can? We could do it?
Well,
We can make
I
it.
think it's a really good idea,
Okay,
but I am extremely cautious when I just remember the last thing I said.
I understand.
In
Tom, what do
other
you
words,
think? Oh, I'm sorry.
I might not be here.
Okay.
I'm open on the 17th as of
Okay.
today.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure I'm open that day, but,
Yeah,
keep
I-
it tentative.
I think I am. So I'm hoping I am that day. I know there's something next week that I can't miss. So I'm trying to think of Tuesday's a day, but I don't think it is. So. Sorry to bring my, so shall we go, Eli, you can make it that day, so let's tentatively look at it, and if we all can be here, we'll talk to Steve and see if we have enough people to do that.
And if there's not a quorum, it could just be a public
Exactly.
meeting,
Yeah.
a community meeting for people to air
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
A public forum.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Which I think is ultimately what the goal is.
Absolutely.
so Gabe, I guess we're set for Tuesday evening, and we'll get something put together and bring some people, we'll bring the people in. So you're okay with getting the word out to everyone?
Yeah, I mean, are we saying this is a council meeting, or are we gonna look to see if we got a quorum first?
I'm just public.
Can we make it a public meeting, and what is
Like a
that?
public forum?
Public forum, but if we have more than,
Open discussion?
Oh, if we have more, then we can always, just the fact that it's noticed doesn't necessarily mean have to be a city council meeting.
okay,
Because, I mean, if we have 3 or more people from the council that want to attend like a chamber dinner,
Right.
we would ideally notice it, that, they're going to be together. So this way you can talk if you want to without
Okay.
having to be quiet. But yeah, I think ideally like having a public forum, on this Fonzie, and this way, ideally whatever information that comes in, then maybe I would say, have people gather that information, such as Richard and Ted and whomever, and then send that off. I just think that that's a good way to approach it, rather than putting the burden on the council, like, okay, now that you've heard these people, you've got to make a decision,
okay. All right. So are you willing to run the meeting, or would you want to dump it right on Steve while he's not here?
The 17th.
I'd be willing to
Okay.
run it, yeah.
I think Steve might like to too.
Yeah.
We can talk about that and decide.
Okay, and
All
then,
right.
yeah, if Steve
All
wants,
right,
sure.
so we're running, we've got a lot on this, so do we have anything else for a upcoming meeting for
Can I
next
just
month?
ask Gabe a question to clarify? It says Trails Committee at 6. I think we meet at 5.
Angela mentioned that to me
Okay.
this morning, and it's on the calendars corrected, and we'll send out a reminder.
Okay, because I'm supposed to be here at 6 o'clock as
Right.
well.
Yeah,
All right, I just wanted to make sure I didn't have the wrong time as well.
Yeah, that would be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
All right, so anything else that we want to go on before we move on to the closed session?
I'm all set. I gotta-
Any future items? All right. All right, we are going to be in a closed session for
Just
from
a-
this. This meeting is adjourned. We're going to move to closed session. Thank you for coming.
You guys want to go in that room so we can
Yeah,
Yeah.
on all this?
that's
Yeah, that'd
good.
be great.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.